about stealing money. Asila mali. So, okay, so let me tell you the songs that I know that are like about stealing, right? I know Asila mali. Sithole kanzima. Right? I know that one, right? And then also I know I wanna be a billionaire. I can't sing the rest because my ears don't hear that sort of stuff. Yeah. So we're talking inflation, guys. Oh, so sorry. There's a light sneaking in my background here. So sorry. Let me see if I can fix it. There we go. I think it should be gone. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So so yeah. So that's it. Yeah, so okay, so now let's just announce this to everyone what we're doing. We're talking about money today, right? We're sharing this on Facebook. And yeah, join us, guys. Please just join us. I'm talking about money, inflation, right? So I'll say when I was a billionaire. Okay, I think I went past billionaire. People don't know, right? People don't know. I've been something, people. Okay, so yeah, so I'm gonna do that too. No, look. So before I share this, so let me just. We're talking about inflation, so there we go. So let's share that. That way, when people join, they won't have to worry about all this other stuff, right? So here we go. I've just called it when I was a billionaire, so that's okay. So today we're talking about inflation and what inflation actually is. So inflation is, I think inflation is stealing quietly. Like it's a very clever form of theft, right? So I'm going to show you. I actually came up with an illustration here to show some stealing. Okay, so I've got a glass of water here, right? This is incredible. I've got a glass of water, and let's say this glass of water was promised to uh, my my baby. Yeah, let's say it was promised to her. Say, look, you can have this glass of water. Can I have a glass of water? Can I have a glass of water, please, Dad? Right? And then I say, okay, baby, I'll give you a glass of water. Do you want a glass of water? And then I do this. Then I give her that. See, that's a full glass of water, but I've got like half a glass still in there, right?
I want water.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So she's asked for water now. And then I just give her the water. Say, here's your glass of water, love. Here's a big bottle of water, right? But I've actually got change here. I've got change. So I've I've committed what? A bit of clever, I've got her to accept something that maybe may not be absolutely best for her. So just excuse me for 2 seconds. Popeye, ngicela uyehle. Ngicela uyehle. Yehle. Yehla Popeye. Ngicela uyehle, please.
So the big dinosaur.
Yehle, yehle, yehle,
A
yehle.
big dinosaur.
Yehle, yehle. Tata. Thank you. Yep. My apologies, guys. We have when I have an office, there will be no interruptions like this. But right now, this is what we're doing, right? There are no plans to have an office. Okay, we are going to do it this way, right? So I'm very sorry, but anyway, that's inflation. That's stealing, but in a way, in a very clever way. So the first thing that I want to ask is, please, guys, watch that video that I did before on the history of money, because that will help you see how inflation was back in the day and what it is now, right? So you'll be able to compare and see the difference. So watch that, and then and it will also help out a bit. So just watch that, and if you've got any questions, queries, or whatever about what I'm presenting or corrections, I'm happy to take them. So hopefully you can leave a comment. If not, I'll fix that so you can. Right. So the first thing before we start here, I want to give an important note, right? This is going to get boring for a while, but at the end, I'll tell you what the evils of inflation are, and then maybe you might be more interested in the presentation, maybe. But if you don't like it, that's okay, guys. I found it very important and meaningful to me when I finally understood what was going on. During the great inflation in Zimbabwe, I had $100 billion in my account. Who knows? I had lots of money. I was getting paid, right? I remember my mom would give me 1,000 rands. Okay, that's South African money. My mom would give me 1,000 rands to pay my university fees. And what I would do during the great inflation is I would hold on to that 1,000 rands. I would hold on to it for a month because we had like a month to pay the fees. And by the time the month was up, maybe the fees would be maybe something like 300 rands or 400, 500 rands. And I'll change that money. Look, these numbers are not absolutely accurate, but you'll get, it's for me to illustrate the idea. Right. Tato, you're going to have problems with your father. Can you please not do that? Sorry, guys. I'm being a father and also doing this presentation, right? So anyway, yeah. So anyway, I would hold on to the money and then I'll just maybe use 500 rands, and the other 500 rands I would use it as my pocket money, and it was working all right because of the inflation, right? So I remember that. So the thing that the first and most important note that we want to make before we start this presentation is I want this to be clear. Inflation doesn't make everyone poor. I know you're supposed to start with the definition of inflation before you start talking about what the inflation does, etc. That's how I like to do things. But I'd like to start with this. Inflation does not make everyone poor, right? So we are going to end with the results of inflation, the definition of inflation. We're going to talk about other things first, right? Inflation, first thing is inflation does not make everyone poor. It only makes some people poor. And on that note, I just want to clarify something. Poor countries don't only have poor people in them. A country can be poor and have very rich people in it. It just means that the number of rich people is very, very few. And the gap between the very rich and the poor is very big, and it's hard to move from being poor to being rich. Okay, that's the difference. That's the difference between poor countries and rich countries. Sometimes people will say something like, oh well, Zimbabwe is not so bad because I've seen Lamborghinis in Zimbabwe that I've never seen in Australia or in the USA or wherever, right? But that's the point. That is exactly the point, that whilst there are Lamborghinis, most people don't even have a car, right? There's a big gap between the rich and the poor. That's the mark of a poor country. That gap, not the fact that there's no one who has money. Okay, that's not what makes a country poor by definition, right? A poor country is a country where most of the people are unable to get out of poverty. That's what it is, right? So let me tell you about the different types of theft, right? There are several types of theft. And once again, watch that video that I did on the history of money. You'll see the type of theft that kings were engaged in. And now I'll just give you different types of theft here. So there's pickpocketing. If someone picks your pocket, they take your money, you don't notice. You notice when you get home, oh, someone picked my pocket, or someone can see them picking your pocket, or sometimes you can feel your pocket being picked. But the intention, usually a pickpocket doesn't want people to be able to tell that they're stealing your money from your pocket. They just take it out of your pocket quietly like that, right? And then there's robbery, which is, give me that money. Give me that money. Give me that money. Right? That's robbery, right? So that's in your face, taking your money. And this happens especially in South Africa. And only in South Africa. Only in South Africa. In Zimbabwe, we don't have robbery. That's for South Africans. Okay? We go to South Africa and we rob South Africans. No, I'm joking, guys. I'm joking. robbery happens everywhere in the world, right? Robbery happens everywhere. You know, if you watch Money Heist or whatever, there's many different. Bonnie and Clyde was a famous one, but basically you show up with a gun and you threaten people and you take their stuff. That's robbery. So in all these cases, you can see someone stealing. Identity theft, you may not see someone stealing, but maybe you may realize a bit later that someone's been using your bank account and taking things out. It is. That's when someone is pretending to be you and receiving money on your behalf or using money on your behalf and not telling you, right? So for themselves, so they're using the money for themselves, but pretending to be you. So it's not on your behalf. I'm sorry, that's bad English. And then, so they're just using your identity to take your things for themselves. That's identity theft. So they're stealing your identity and they also steal your resources as well. So that's another way of stealing, right? And then there's hacking, where they will get into your online account or something and they steal your details and use them, right? So those are all types of stealing. But we fairly recognize this as stealing. But what we don't really see as stealing is inflation, hyperinflation in particular, right? Most people don't really see that as stealing. And I'm going to demonstrate using this quick presentation why inflation is theft, right? So how is it possible for it to be theft, right? So imagine, so what we do is we start with a small place. Imagine you're living on an island, a small country that has 10 people in it. We use a small illustration and then we'll expand it to a bigger base, right? With small people, with 10 people in it. And then you have $100,000 in your bank account. The total money in the amount of money in the whole island is $100,000, $110,000. That means the rest of the 9 people in the island all have $10,000 shared among them, right? But it makes you the richest person on that island by 100,000. Yeah, 100,000 or $90,000 richer than everybody else. Yeah, I think it's $100,000. Yeah, $100,000 richer than everybody else. So you are insanely rich, right? Compared to everyone else on that island. So now, this means when people are selling things or whatever, you can afford it. You generally don't worry about prices. If someone is trying to sell things, to everyone, for you it will always be a walk in the park because you can afford whatever they are selling to everyone. Because if everyone who has less than 10,000 in their account can afford it, and if you have $100,000, you can afford everything. Like you can afford everything that everyone else affords on the island, but no one can afford what you afford, right? So now imagine everyone had $100,000 in the island. If everyone had $100,000 on that island, it means that you can't afford anything that is that everyone else can't afford. Like you're just ordinary. You're the same with everybody else, right? So the price of things, if the price of things was like $20, it could go up to $50. You wouldn't care. No one would care in the island because everyone can afford $50, right? Because all of you have that kind of money, right? So now let's process this slowly, right? So when you're rich or when you're normal, right? So when on the side when you're rich, you can buy things before anyone else. And then on the side when you're normal, you're not special. You're just exactly the same as everyone else. You worry in terms of money. You worry about money prices of things in the same way that everyone worries about it, generally speaking, right? But what if living on that island, right? Living on that island, Oprah shows up and Oprah gives everyone $1 billion, right? Everyone gets $1 billion except for you, right? So everyone else, that means if the prices of things go up, everyone else can afford it, right? But you can't afford it. So let's say, for example, you have $100,000, everyone else has $1 billion in their account, right? So then the price of bread starts going at $10,000 or whatever per loaf. For you, it's already panic mode because each time you buy bread at $10,000, you are left with $90,000, and next time you'll be left with 80. So it means like you can buy bread maybe for 10 days and do nothing else. So if you've just become poor overnight, right? So you've been made poor overnight, but you have not been robbed. What Oprah did is inflation. What she did was she caused the inflation there. The price of things went up, but you can't afford it anymore. So she's actually brought you down, right? So by inflation is basically increasing the amount of money. So here we're defining hyperinflation is basically increasing the amount of money without without changing the money supply. So without changing the things that are made or sold in that area, right? So there's still the same amount of things, but Oprah just gave people money. That's all. So look, give me 2 seconds. I need to fix something here. Yep. Sorry. The life of a father. Yeah. So that's inflation there. That what she did. So she's increased the amount of money, but there was no increase in the things that were being made or sold or anything. So that is causing inflation, right? So
Mommy, put some more.
no thanks. So so now we're talking about the power to be Oprah. Imagine if there was people who had the power to be Oprah, to just give $1 billion to whoever they wanted, right? So so the amount of money in any economy is controlled by the Reserve Bank, right? The Reserve Bank does this by increasing or decreasing the inflation. Just hold on. Yep. Anyway, so it's by changing the interest rate, they can change the amount of money in the economy. They can cause the amount of money to reduce in the economy or the amount of money to increase. So now let's talk about, there's a golden rule here. The golden rule about this money stuff is whoever gets the money first becomes wealthier, right? Whoever has the money first before everyone else, if before everyone else notices, becomes wealthier. So let's say you were one of those 9 people and you got that 1 billion from Oprah, and you woke up in the morning and you checked your bank account, but everyone else didn't check their bank account because maybe they went to watch a soccer game or because whatever they went to do. But you are the first one to notice you've got $1 billion. And then you realize everyone else has got $1 billion in their account, but they just don't know. So what you would do then is you would quickly go and buy things, okay? Because if you don't, the people who are selling those things will know everyone has $1 billion and prices will go up. So you would run to spend that money quickly. What if you knew Oprah was coming to the island, right? And she wasn't going to give you $1 billion, but she was going to give everyone else the money, right? So what would you do then? You would spend your money, that 100,000 that you have, you would spend it the day before Oprah comes. You'd spend it and buy as many things as you can and keep those things with you. When Oprah then gives people 1 billion or whatever, you can then sell those things for a higher price. And at the end of the day, you end up still being rich because you are now using those resources that you acquired at $100,000 and selling them at a higher price. So you've survived, right? So this is where we come to the Zimbabwe peak inflation period here. So the people who make money or people who made money in this circumstance were the people who had the money first, right? The people who had the money first. This is like, if you remember carefully, you can, or clearly, I don't know if you remember or if you've heard, what sometimes the government would say, look, tomorrow morning we've got a $1 billion coming out, $1 billion note coming out. It's going to be in circulation on tomorrow morning. No, they would say on the 15th of June, right? But you would see that money maybe on the 9th of June. You would see that money in the street when it's supposed to be released on the 15th also on the 10th. Let's say it's supposed to be released on the 10th. You would see it on the 9th or sometimes the 8th, because whoever had the money first could use it and make more money before everyone else had, right? So that's basically the science of the inflation. And if you didn't have if you had foreign currency, then you would make more money. Like you'd make more money because the foreign currency was just always becoming more and more valuable, because the Zim dollar was losing value every single day because everyone was getting it so easily, right? So it was becoming cheap, right? And then so the Zimbabwean government, the Zimbabwean Reserve Bank, was actually playing opera, giving certain people money, and those people would go into the market and buy the foreign currency at a cheap price, and but they would be increasing the amount of Zim dollars in circulation, and then that would cause more inflation, right? And those who were not getting anything from opera, it got to a point where all of us knew inflation was coming. So everyone knew that, okay, this money won't last. This money won't last. So that means everyone wants to spend that money quickly. Because if you just keep your money in the bank account and everyone just keeps on getting $1 billion, your $1,000 is going to be worthless. You're going to end up being poor overnight. So everyone starts spending their money quickly, which sends the prices higher and higher. And that's what we call hyperinflation, right? And this makes things very unpredictable, right? It makes things very unpredictable because you don't know how much inflation you're going to have, right? Right. And that's when the evils of inflation come, right? And here I've got my picture of inflation, right? It's like a green snake in a dense green forest. It will bite you, but you won't see where it's coming from. It's just biting you and going back into the leaves, and you don't know where it is. It's following you and biting and biting and biting. That's what inflation is. You don't really see where it's coming from. Like, it's just coming from everywhere. But really, there's an actual snake that's biting you. And here, in this case, the actual snake was the Reserve Bank and its policies. So the evils that those things cause is, first of all, there's uncertainty. Imagine just walking in that rainforest, you don't know where the snake is, but it keeps biting you. You can't see it because it's matching and hiding. It's camouflaged by the forest. So that's what inflation was, okay? Because we didn't expect that the Reserve Bank is the one that's causing the money to be worthless. How could the Reserve Bank make the Zim dollar worthless? You know, they are the ones who are responsible for it, but they were doing it. If they were doing it, they kept biting and biting and biting. So in this environment, things are uncertain, and you don't know how much money you will have tomorrow in your bank account, how much it will be worth, how much it will be able to buy, right? So that means the idea of saving money is becoming useless to you. You don't even want to save money anymore, because saving money in Zim dollars is useless at this point, because it's going to be worthless the next day, right? So it's actually wasting money to try and save it. You'd rather spend it. So when you've got that sort of situation, that means long-term business planning is impossible. It's not very good, not very wise to even do any long-term business plan, because you don't know what the price of anything will be, right? So you can't really calculate anything because the inflation rate is just insane. So business planning is not possible. Everyone is forced to lie and hide about their activities, because the government, then you see when I give an extra explanation how everyone becomes a liar, right? And because there's no one who can predict what's happening, investors don't want to come and put money and build businesses there. Companies that were there can't stay because they can't do anything. That's why many businesses left Zimbabwe, because you can't do anything in a situation where you can't even know how much money you have in your bank because of the inflation, right? So when those companies close, when those investors go away, when people can't do long-term business planning, when people don't do savings, the economy collapses. People lose their jobs. Okay, and that means services are not and cannot be attended to because there's no money to pay for those services. That means garbage collection, maintenance of the streets, and all these things. All those things start collapsing, right? Because there's no way to predict anything. This is the evil that inflation does, right? And next thing is no one can calculate how much money they made. So let's say, for example, you went and bought these lollies here, these Vita gummies. I went and bought these and I'm selling them at $10 each, right? In Zim dollars. I'm selling them at $10 each. But when I bought, maybe I bought 10 of these for $100 and I bought them for $50. And then I come back and I sell them at $10 each. I'm supposed to make $100 and then I'll have $50 profit, right? Like let's say I didn't have any purchasing costs or selling costs or whatever, right? I will make $50 profit. But with the inflation, maybe I bought 10 of these at $10 and then I sell them. The inflation is so high, I decide to sell them at $1,000 each. I make $10,000. When I go back to try and buy 10 more of these, I find that okay, it now costs me $100,000 to buy them. So if I'm writing it down, if I'm telling someone I bought this for $10, I sold them for $1,000. It looks like I sold them for I sold them for $10,000, right? It looks like I made a profit, right? It makes like I made like a $9,900 profit or something like that, right? But when I go back to try and buy them, they now cost me $1 million Zim dollars to buy things so that I can sell 10 more. I can't even afford to buy one. That means I actually made a loss. But if you look at the numbers on their own, it looks like I made a profit, but I didn't, right? So it's because of the inflation. If you didn't understand that part, just go back and replay the whole story or ask me again and I'll try and clarify how that all works, right? So no one can calculate how much money they made. That's why businesses live, right? And because the prices of things keep changing, the government starts coming up with laws and trying to stop people from doing this and that because prices keep changing. So this leads to the practice of lying and hiding, right? And scamming and scheming and plotting, right? So that means people who are very good liars, people who are very good at hiding, right? People who don't really worry about whether it's right or wrong, those people will make more money in that situation, right? So that means that society now elevates people who are doing very devious things, right? Studying, going to school to study so you can get a job becomes a useless thing, literally a useless thing, because you're not going to get a job and you're not going to be able to make any money at all because the economy is not working. So studying becomes worthless. At least in terms of in monetary terms, right? So most people would feel like there's no reason for them to go to school and they look at school as a waste of time. In fact, I had a policeman tell me that when I was in Zimbabwe, that you're busy studying, we're making so much money in the streets here, people are giving us money, you know? So anyway, when studying becomes worthless, when there's no jobs, that means the smart people, the capable people, the qualified people leave. And I was speaking to someone last week who was saying, all the good, not all the good teachers, but many of the good teachers left Zimbabwe, went to Botswana, went to the UK, went to the USA, went to South Africa, because they can get paid, right? The doctors have left, the nurses are leaving. Anyone who is able to leave decides to leave. Why? Because they're thinking it's not a stable environment. I can't do anything here. So it leads to a big brain drain, right? Even all these skilled workers, fitters, and all this, everyone looks for a way out because they can't make any money. There's no jobs, and somewhere else they are needed, they could make money. So inflation leads directly to brain drain, right? And then those who are in charge of the process, remember, inflation actually makes other people rich. So those people, those first money getters, right? The ones who get money from Oprah get very, very rich, which means they are rewarded for inflating. So they make more money as the inflation goes up. So it means that those people were actually finding it worthwhile and reasonable for them to inflate the money because they're actually getting richer, right? Right? Everyone is becoming poorer, right? Generally, like not everyone, including those in the upper parts, but everyone else at the bottom is becoming richer. Is becoming poorer. They just can't see why. Let's say you didn't lose your job, but all of a sudden the money you make is not enough to buy tomatoes. It's not enough to buy groceries. It's not enough to do anything, right? So everyone is becoming, you just see yourself going lower in your ability to earn, but you can't see anyone who's stealing from you. This means the government can blame anything and anyone for your problems, right? The government can then say, turn around and say, oh, well, it's corruption. There's corruption. That's why the prices are going so high. It's corruption, right? The government can then say, it's price gougers, price gougers. There are price gougers out there who just put the price of things up and they don't care about people. They are heartless. It's capitalism, right? It's just anything or anyone can be blamed because the inflation is like a snake in the grass. You can't see it. It just keeps on biting and you don't know where it's coming from, right? Um, anything, sanctions, speculations, anything and anyone can be blamed, right? So then the government will turn around and say, oh, we are trying to control them. We're telling them to sell things at $4, whatever, But people can't do that. People can't sell things at $4 when they know I can't sell this at a lower price when I know I won't be able to buy more. So I'll have to sell it somewhere else, okay? Which leads to I'll have to sell it in the black market. I'll have to sell it under the table. And that leads to that leads to black market stuff. And for the government to control black market stuff, for the government to control prices, you will have what they will need more police, right? They will need more police. And if they get more police, what do? We bribe the police because we want to do whatever we're doing. Like, hey, please guys, go away. I want to do my business. Here's some money, go away, right? So that increases corruption. So you can see how like inflation builds and builds on more and more corrupt activities, encouraging things that have to do with spending less and less, time thinking and just going for the quick buck. And that means you don't have solid things that are happening, that are sustainable, that last for a long time. So inflation is really, really, really very bad. And I was happy to discover that that's what they'd done. I was very happy with that. So not happy that it happened, but just happy to know exactly what had happened and who had benefited and why they did it. So anyway, that's that, guys. So basically, my definition of inflation is just an increase in money supply. But if you increase the money supply where there's a lot of productivity going, it masks the inflation. Like you don't see the prices going up. The prices should actually go down when a country becomes more productive. Things should get cheaper. But when there's inflation, it keeps the prices up or keeps the prices stable, So I think prices should actually be going down instead. Okay, so now let's just wrap it up and I'll tell you my sources. So if you just look up the definition of inflation, but if I was to recommend any book, I think I've talked about this book 1,000 times. I've just actually only watched this presentation. It's called Ethics of Money Production. And I've said I'm a child of the Mises Institute. So those guys really explain how money works. And if you don't want to do all these, as long as you apply the law of supply and demand, you can be able to see exactly how it happened and how they were making all this money. Yeah, so those were the days when I was a billionaire. Other people were actually becoming real billionaires in the actual sense of the word. So if there's anyone out there who actually made incredible losses during the great inflation, please let me know so I can document your losses. Okay, send me all your stuff and I can document it for you if you want. Because I think eventually someone's going to lie and say this never happened, right? So I'll give you, yeah. So I remember being paid. I think I've told you how I was making my money. Anyway, that's it, guys. I'll say goodbye. So yeah, so we keep building on this series on because I want to lay out what I think should happen in Zimbabwe. So I thought if I explain what inflation is, if I explain where I think money comes from, then maybe next I'll explain my understanding of what communism, capitalism is, etc. And then then we'll keep building like that, and then we'll see the structure that I have, and then I'll tell you my opinion. Yeah, that's that. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you next time. So as our outro, there's an intro and an outro. So our outro will be Aslam Ali. Sitwalegans ma. I've been counting the change from a